Have you ever watched a woman lose everything in a single breath only, to rise stronger than anyone believed she could? Before the lies, before the betrayal, before the night she was forced to sign away her entire life. There was just a woman begging for love in a house built to break her. Asterisk. I share new life stories here every day, and I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Now, let's jump back into my story. I'm sure you'll love it. If you keep listening till the end and tell me from which part of the world you are watching this story, I am interested to know how far away this story traveled. Evelyn. Carter Brooks sat on the cold bathroom floor, staring at the single line on yet another pregnancy test. One line always won. She dropped it into the trash where 17 others lay like gravestones of hope. 5 years of trying. 5 years of heartbreak. 5 years of being told her body was failing the family. She wiped her tears, forced herself up, and headed downstairs into the Brooks family's mansion where love was rationed and cruelty was served like dessert. In the dining room, Margaret Brooks, Garrett's mother, sat at the head of the long glass table wearing a smile as sharp as cut steel. Her silver hair was pinned flawlessly, her diamond necklace catching the chandelier light. Evelyn knew that necklace alone cost more than her entire childhood home. Garrett, her husband, sat silently, shoulders tense, eyes fixed anywhere except on her. He hadn't looked at her properly in months. Not since the last failed test. Not since he stopped pretending to care. "You're late," Margaret said without looking up. "We've been waiting." Evelyn opened her mouth to apologize, but Margaret lifted a hand. "No excuses, darling. Punctuality is respect. Something you struggle with." Vivian, Garrett's younger sister, snickered behind her wine glass. Garrett stayed quiet. Of course he did. Evelyn sat, her hands trembling. She tried to lift her spoon, but it clattered against the bowl. Margaret's eyes snapped toward her like a predator spotting weakness. Nervous Evelyn. Her voice was syrup-sweet, poison underneath. Or just unwell again. Pale, tired, unproductive. There it was. The attack she had rehearsed for but still never saw coming. "I'm fine," Evelyn whispered. Margaret hummed thoughtfully. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of waiting. No child, no contribution, no value added to this family. "Tell me, have you even followed the treatments the specialist suggested? Or are you simply incapable?" The word slammed into Evelyn like a physical blow. Vivian leaned forward, smiling like she was delivering good news. "She's barren, Mama. Let's stop pretending." Evelyn felt the tears threaten, burning behind her eyes, but she kept her back straight. She would not cry. Not in front of them, enough. Garrett muttered, but it was weak, an empty defense. He didn't mean it. He didn't even meet Evelyn's eyes. Margaret waved him off like a child. "Your wife must face reality. She's married into one of the most powerful families in this country. And what has she given us? Nothing." Richard, Garrett's father, lowered his phone for the first time. "My colleagues ask about grandchildren. What am I supposed to say? That my son's wife is defective." Evelyn's breath hitched. Defective, incapable, barren. And now look at her? Margaret added, staring with cold disdain. Wasting away, pitiful. A disappointment. Silence fell. Everyone waited. For Garrett to step in? To defend her? To love her the way he once promised. But Garrett simply set his spoon down and looked at her with eyes that held no warmth, no softness, just exhaustion. "Maybe they're right," he said quietly. "Maybe you're not capable." The world tilted. Evelyn couldn't breathe. Garrett stood from the table. 5 years, Evelyn. 5 years and nothing. I can't defend you forever." He walked out, and Evelyn sat frozen, surrounded by empty chairs and colder hearts, feeling something inside her fracture, not a clean break, but a violent shattering that left edges sharp enough to cut. She stumbled upstairs to the nursery they had prepared years ago, the yellow walls glowing softly in the lamplight. She sank into the rocking chair, holding her arms around herself like she was cradling the baby she dreamed of. "I'll protect you," she whispered to the empty room. "I'll never let anyone hurt you. Never." She didn't know then how soon she'd get her miracle, and how quickly they'd try to steal it. Asterisk. Sometimes hope doesn't return with a gentle knock. Sometimes it crashes into your life like a lightning bolt you never saw coming. 3 weeks after that humiliating dinner, Evelyn woke before dawn and ran to the bathroom, falling to her knees as violent nausea tore through her. Her hands shook as she gripped the cold porcelain. The room spun. Her breath hitched. Her pulse raced. Morning sickness. The thought struck her like a shockwave. She forced herself to her feet, flung open the cabinet, and dug out a pregnancy test she'd hidden behind cleaning supplies no longer left in plain sight. Because seeing them felt like seeing. Her failures lined up on a shelf, her fingers trembled as she unwrapped it. She took the test, then she waited. Those 3 minutes felt longer than all 5 years of pain combined. She paced the tile floor, hands pressed to her mouth, praying, begging for a miracle. When she finally looked down, 2 lines, 2 perfect, undeniable lines. Her knees buckled. She fell to the floor, clutching the test against her chest. A raw, gasping sob tore from her throat. Not grief, not fear, but overwhelming relief. "I'm pregnant," she whispered, pressing her palm to her still flat stomach. "You're real. You're finally here." Joy flooded her. Then fear, because the Lancasters would never celebrate this. That evening, she stood at the doorway of the sitting room. Inside, the Brooks family lounged comfortably. Margaret sipping wine, Richard pretending to read the paper, Vivian scrolling her phone, and Garrett staring blankly out the window. Evelyn swallowed hard. "I have something to share," she said softly. 4 heads turned toward her. Margaret raised a brow. "Well, don't keep us waiting." Evelyn took a breath. "I'm pregnant." Silence fell so heavy it stole the air from her lungs. Richard lowered his paper slowly. Vivian's jaw dropped. Garrett finally turned expressionless, almost dazed. Margaret stood up, walked over, and took the test from Evelyn's shaking hand. She examined it like a jeweler inspecting a fake diamond. Then she handed it back with a disgusted look. "One test means nothing. I'll see a doctor tomorrow," Evelyn whispered. "I'll get blood work." "Could," Margaret snapped, "assuming this isn't another desperate attempt for attention." Vivian burst into laughter. "After 5 years? Girl, that timing is suspicious," Richard muttered. "Wouldn't be the first time someone faked a pregnancy to trap a man." The accusation sliced through Evelyn. Her eyes landed on Garrett. "Do you believe them?" she whispered. Garrett rubbed his forehead and said coldly, "Get the blood test. Then we'll talk." He walked away without a glance back. The next morning, Evelyn sat alone in a white exam room, paper crinkling beneath her. When the doctor returned with a smile, she already felt the answer in her bones. "Congratulations, Ms. Carter Brooks. You're pregnant." Evelyn burst into tears, but when she returned home with the official papers, the Brooks family did not celebrate. They barely acknowledged her. Richard didn't look up. Margaret skimmed the report like it bored her. "Well, at least you've finally done something right." Though carrying a child and raising one are 2 different matters. Vivian rolled her eyes. "Great. Now we get months of mood swings and crying." Garrett nodded once. Barely, no joy. No warmth, no relief, just cold acknowledgement. As the weeks passed, Margaret's cruelty sharpened. Daily inspections. Criticism disguised as concern. "You're gaining too much." "Wait, you're not eating enough?" "Sloppy. You're letting yourself go," Vivian whispered insults behind smiling photographs. At charity events, Garrett stayed out late, smelling of perfume that wasn't Evelyn's, and Evelyn pregnant, exhausted. Alone held her stomach every night and whispered to the child she couldn't yet feel, "I don't know how to protect you, but I will. I promise." She didn't yet know she wasn't carrying 1 child. Or 2. She didn't yet know the miracle growing inside her would become the very weapon the Brooks family used to destroy her. But she would, soon. By her 5th month, Evelyn's belly had grown into a soft, round curve. Beautiful, miraculous, and apparently a threat to the Brooks family image. Margaret's cruelty intensified like she was punishing Evelyn for daring to succeed. Every morning began the same way. Margaret circling her like a vulture. "You're swelling." "It's unflattering," she muttered one day. "You're eating too much," she warned the next. "You're eating too little," she scolded just hours later. Evelyn stopped answering altogether. Silence became her shield. Vivian, of course, made everything worse. At a charity gala, cameras flashing, Vivian leaned close and whispered through a sparkling smile, "You look like a whale in this dress." Everyone staring. Garrett must be disgusted. A camera clicked. Vivian posed like a loving sister-in-law. Evelyn stood still, breathing through pain that wasn't physical. Garrett rarely came home now. When he did, he smelled like expensive perfume, never Evelyn's. He slept in the guest room down the hall, closing the door like she was a stranger. One night, around midnight, Evelyn couldn't stand it anymore. She padded down the hallway in her nightgown and knocked lightly. "Garrett." No answer. "Can we talk?" A long moment. Then the door cracked open. He looked exhausted, annoyed, irritated she even existed. "It's late," he snapped. "What do you want?" She swallowed hard. "The doctor thinks it might be twins," she whispered. "I thought you'd want to know." Garrett stared at her like she was telling him the weather. "Twins?" He exhaled sharply. "Great, more complications." Complications. The babies she was carrying, the babies she'd prayed for, the babies she loved already. He shook his head. "Garrett, doesn't this mean anything to you?" she asked softly. "We're becoming parents." Finally he looked at her, and the indifference in his eyes shattered something inside her. "You want to know what it means?" he said quietly. "It means I'm trapped. It means every time I look at you, I see a mistake I can't undo." Evelyn's breath caught. He wasn't done. "It means I wish I'd married someone else. Someone fertile. Someone normal." She felt the words like punches. "You don't mean that?" "I do." "You're pathetic, Evelyn, desperate, clinging, and now you're going to trap me with babies I never even wanted." Her body folded in on itself. Her hands wrapped protectively around her belly. Garrett sighed in disgust. "Get out of my sight. And don't knock on my door again." He closed the door, and Evelyn broke silently, holding her stomach as if shielding the babies from their father's hatred. The next morning, Margaret found Evelyn reading a childbirth book in the library. "Put that down," Margaret ordered, snatching it away. "You don't need to learn anything. Your body knows what to do, assuming it's capable of anything at all." Then came the real blow. "Once you deliver, a nanny will take over. You'll focus on losing the weight immediately. I won't have you embarrassing our family." Evelyn stared at her. "You're talking like they're not my children." Margaret smiled, slow and cruel. "They're Brooke's heirs, dear. You're just the vessel." The room spun. Her hands gripped the chair until her knuckles went white. The next doctor appointment brought news that felt like a miracle and a nightmare at the same time. Double quotes Mrs. Carter Brooks. The doctor said gently, "You're not carrying twins." Evelyn froze. "You're carrying triplets. 3 healthy babies. Triplets. 3 lives. 3 miracles. 3 reasons to survive." She broke into tears, real trembling tears. But she already knew. The Brooks family wouldn't celebrate, and she was right. That night, when she shared the news, Margaret went pale. "Triplets. That's excessive," she barked. Vivian burst into laughter. "Oh, this is rich. She can barely manage herself." Richard shook his head. "This complicates everything." Garrett didn't say a word. He just walked out. He didn't come home for the next 3 nights. Evelyn sat alone in the nursery, staring at the 3 cribs someone had delivered while she was gone. She placed a hand on each one and whispered, "I will fight for you. I will love you enough for both parents. And one day, I will make them all pay." She didn't know yet how close that day was, but fate was already preparing the battlefield. The contractions hit at 3:07 a.m., tearing through Evelyn like lightning ripping open the sky. She woke with a strangled cry, clutching her belly as pain radiated through her entire body. She reached for the phone, called Garrett. Voicemail, again and again. He wasn't coming. Of course he wasn't. She dragged herself down the hallway, sweat dripping down her temples, vision blurry. She knocked on Margaret's door. "Margaret," she gasped. "Please." "The baby's there coming." The door opened. Margaret stood there in a silk robe, irritation etched across her face. At 3 in the morning, she said sharply, "Surely it can wait." Contraction ripped through Evelyn. She doubled over, crying out. Margaret sighed. "Fine, I'll call the driver. But don't expect me to hold your hand." She closed the door in Evelyn's face. The ride to the hospital was agony. Evelyn gripped the leather seat, teeth clenched, breath shallow. Margaret scrolled her phone, not one glance. Not one word. At the hospital, doctors rushed her into a delivery room, while staff tried to comfort her. Strangers, showing more compassion in 5 minutes than her family had in 5 years. She kept asking, begging for Garrett. He's not answering. The nurse whispered gently. Labor lasted 18 hours. 18 hours of pain so consuming she thought it might kill her. And still, no Garrett. No family, nothing. Nothing then a cry. A small, fierce cry that split the air. "It's a girl." Evelyn sobbed. She barely got to touch her before the nurses worked quickly. Seconds later, another girl. Her heart swelled, aching with love. Then a boy. 3 tiny miracles. 3 tiny cries. 3 pieces of her heart born into the world for one perfect moment. Everything felt worth it. Then the door burst open. Garrett strode in like a man late to a meeting. Behind him came Margaret, Vivian, and Richard. For storms entering the calm. Garrett removed an envelope from his jacket. "Evelyn," he said coldly, "we need you to sign these." She blinked, exhausted, dizzy. "Sin? What?" Margaret answered with icy satisfaction. "Your divorce papers. You've served your purpose." The words slammed into her harder than the contractions. Vivian's cruel laugh echoed. "Oh my God, look at her face." She actually thought today would be happy. Evelyn's voice trembled. "Garrett, please. We just had children. Our children. You can't do this." Garrett shrugged. "I should have left years ago. Mother told me to wait until we had heirs. He dropped the papers onto her lap as if discarding garbage. Richard added, "And the prenuptial agreement gives us full custody. Everything belongs to the Brooks family." Evelyn froze. Full custody. Her children taken. Her marriage destroyed. Her life gone. She stared at Garrett with pleading eyes. "Please. Don't take my babies, please." Garrett didn't flinch. Margaret yanked the wedding ring off Evelyn's finger. "This never belonged to you." Something inside Evelyn cracked, but not the way they expected. Not into pieces. Into armor. She signed the papers with shaking hands, tears sliding silently down her cheeks as she handed them back, her voice broken, tired. But certain whispered, "You will regret this." Garrett smirked. "I doubt that." They walked out, leaving her alone, her children crying somewhere beyond the wall. Her body broken. Her heart shattered. But in that shattering, something ignited, something powerful, something dangerous. 2 days later, Evelyn sat on her hospital bed packing her small bag when a man in a tailored suit entered. "Miss Carter," he said gently, "my name is Theodore Grant. I represent your late mother's estate." Evelyn frowned. "My mother didn't have an estate." "She did," he said softly. "A massive one." He placed a folder in her lap. Inside bank accounts, property deeds, stock certificates, a trust worth over $1 billion, and mountains of evidence of every crime the Brooks family ever committed, every fraud, every bribe, every lie. Her mother had gathered it all. For her, for moments like this, Theodore said, for the day you would need to fight back. Tears blurred Evelyn's vision. "So you're saying?" She whispered, voice trembling. Theodore nodded. You have the money, the power, and the evidence to destroy them completely, and to get your children back. Evelyn closed the folder, straightened her spine, lifted her chin, a slow, cold smile curled across her lips, the smile of a woman reborn. "I'm ready," she said softly. "Let's end the Brooks family." Thanks for watching till end. Please like and subscribe my channel. I will be very thankful to you. Sometimes life takes turns we never expect. Every person in this story carried their own pain, their own choices, and their own consequences. Maybe you saw yourself in one of them, or maybe it reminded you of someone you once knew. What do you think happened next? What would you have done if you were in their place? If you have any questions about what happened to the other characters, or if you want me to share more about them, just comment below. I read every message you leave, and your thoughts truly mean a lot to me. And if this story touched your heart, inspired you, or even made you think differently, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps me keep sharing stories that move people, open minds, and remind us we're all human. At the end of the day, your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you for watching, for feeling, and for being part of this journey. More powerful stories are coming soon. Stay tuned and stay kind.